Hello, my name is Michael, and welcome to Repstugog. On this harrowing eve, any other ambulance ride may cost us $2,000, but this particular ambulance ride could cost us our very lives. Zombie Virus is a power release of the simple 2000 game The Zombie vs. QQ Sha, or something along the lines of The Zombie versus the Ambulance. It was published by D3 Publisher Incorporated and developed by Vanteon Systems Corporation in 2006 in Japan, before being localized by D3 Publisher of Europe Limited, operating under the name Essential Games in 2007. But before I can really get into how Zombie Virus is as a game, I would like to first talk a little bit about what Zombie Virus is as a game. Its original release in Japan was part of the Simple 2000 series, which was a collection of games created by multiple different studios under the production umbrella of D3 that would be made on the cheap and sold for the price of 2,000 yen, which is 1376, or 1760 in 2006. So to temper expectations, these games are very simple. They're the type of game that you would find while rummaging through a bargain bin in a financially hemorrhaging Circuit City in 2008, or whatever the Japanese equivalent of that would be. Now, don't let my overly specific anecdote immediately push you away from the Simple 2000 series entirely. These are not shovelware. They're real games, and from what I understand, some of them even exceed expectations. They just aren't going to have the financial backing of the AAA or AA darlings of the day. In Zombie Virus, you will play as a nameless, voiceless doctor in training who works at a hospital in an experimental utopic city named Sunlight City. Because anybody was allowed to live there, some areas did fall into poverty, but as a new type of city, it showed tremendous growth. What? An earthquake strikes the city, and zombies start appearing almost immediately. 99% of the population instantly zombified, and it's becoming very clear that this hospital is one of the last bastions of hope for the citizens of Sunlight City. You're tasked with using your ambulance to save survivors around the city and try to find a way out. The core gameplay involves driving out to the city, finding and picking up survivors. So you're forced to either scramble to find more survivors before the first one zombifies to make the most of your trip, or to take them back before the timer runs out. You'll have a general timer, which is illustrated by this little hospital on the top left of your heads-up display. This meter represents the morale of the survivors that you've rescued previously, who are defending the hospital during your courier missions. You can refill this bar by either creating combos by running over large strings of zombies, or by rescuing certain types of survivors. Every single niche retro blogger or enthusiast talkabouter I've seen online immediately draws comparisons to the arcade game turned Dreamcast game Crazy Taxi.
Hey, come on over, have some fun with Crazy Taxi!
I see the parallels with Crazy Taxi, but they're very surface level. Like, yeah, you're driving vehicles in a city and picking people up and dropping them off with a timer, and I see the flavor seep into things like the combo announcements, but Crazy Taxi is fast, upbeat, and full of life. It keeps things short and sweet and is oozing with personality. I think a more apt statement would be something like, it's like Crazy Taxi, but without any of the things that you love about Crazy Taxi. However, this is more of a dispelling of the notion that if you like Crazy Taxi, you'll be drawn to this Zombie Virus game. I believe that you can draw inspiration from something and not necessarily need to live up to it, especially when keeping in mind that this is a budget game. Zombie Virus probably did take inspiration from Crazy Taxi, but I would like to mostly judge the game against itself itself and not the giants that it stands atop the shoulders of. As you dive into your $80 freshly eBayed copy of this game, which retailed for more like $20 back in the day, you'll notice that the car you start with kinda sucks. It drives unbelievably slow and can barely kill any zombie that it hits, and it can also only carry 2 passengers at a time. It don't feel good. There are 5 areas for you to explore, but you're stuck in the main hub area at first. You progress in the game, unlocking new upgrades and cars along the way by rescuing different types of survivors. Each type of survivor does something different for you as you rescue them. Politicians are a little bit different because you need 3 of them before you gain anything from saving them. Every 3 politicians that you save opens up a new area for you to explore. However, a politician doesn't spawn until you've saved 10 survivors, meaning you'll need to save at least 31 survivors before you're able to go to a new area. This system is a little bit funny to me on a meta level because it definitely encourages you to ignore certain types of survivors and pick up certain types of survivors that are just better, which indirectly creates sort of a tier list of human worth based on occupation, and it goes as such. The politician has got the keys to the city. He's gonna get you out. He's the most important. The auto mechanic can do the upgrades for you, so they're obviously less important than the politician, but still very important. The soldier will increase the max morale, so they're very good to have around for the longevity of your encampment. The police restore a pretty large amount of morale, so they're obviously less important than the soldier, but still more important than the others. The male civilians only give you a little bit of morale, so they're obviously less important than the police. And the female civilians give you the same amount of morale as the male civilians, but they zombify faster, which makes them worth less than the male civilian. Anyway, as you start unlocking new upgrades for your vehicles, you'll need to give them time to be researched. The research time is represented by the number of zombies killed in the field, so to unlock a new pair of tires, you may have to kill 80 zombies for that to be fully unlocked. This system works well enough for what it is, although it becomes a larger and larger diversion from progress as the game goes on and the number of zombies you have to kill for each research rises. The upgrades themselves are kind of frustrating. Going slow feels bad. Your base car caps out at 40 miles per hour, and I would say that the driving doesn't start to feel good until you get a car that can go 70 miles per hour. Now you'd think this would have a simple solution. Just focus on upgrades that increase your speed, right? Well, there's also a stat called power, and if it's not maxed out, you don't kill zombies in one hit when you hit them with your car. This means that you will kill zombies considerably less fast, get combos which replenish your morale less, and research new upgrades considerably slower. So you kind of need to dedicate 2 attachments to increasing the power of your vehicle, which leaves you with 1 attachment that can boost your speed and the other being lights which manipulate what shows on your minimap. Given this conundrum, the only way to increase your speed beyond getting the singular early game engine that speeds you up is to unlock a new vehicle. There are 4 vehicles that you can unlock as well as a 5th secret video, and you won't get to that sweet spot of 70 miles per hour until you unlock the 3rd vehicle. So you'll be forced to put up with clunky and slow feeling vehicles until that point, or just have worse vehicles in order to drive fast. Each of the 4 different parts that you can upgrade have 4 tiers of upgrades that you can unlock individually, which brings us to my second problem with the upgrade progression. 1 tier gives you speed, 1 tier gives you power, 1 tier gives you durability, and the 4th gives you everything. By the time you unlock this 4th tier of parts, you'll be long settled on what your optimal vehicle looks like part-wise, so it feels like there's only actually 2 small portions of the game where I'm getting meaningful or fun upgrades. The durability parts don't even really do that much for you. You'd be sacrificing speed and power to be tankier in a game that's about getting survivors back to a hospital as fast as possible. I never felt like the health of my vehicle was in much jeopardy during my normal gameplay. The zombies will basically never hit you unless you're completely stopped, save for the mechanic where a zombie can randomly jump on your vehicle and you have to wiggle the analog stick until you're able to shake it off, taking consistent damage until it's gone. Sideswiping walls and terrain doesn't hurt you either, so unless you're full speed slamming into things head on constantly, I don't know why you would ever need the extra durability. Every time you unlock a new area by collecting 3 politicians, they'll let you know that everybody in the area just happened to die as you saved these these high-casted individuals. Also, between each of these new levels, you'll engage in some car versus monster action. There will be a new boss for you to fight. Most of these are clunky and weird, but not necessarily bad per se. They generally involve goading a monster into attacking and then ramming it full speed while it's vulnerable. The monster designs are actually super funky and interesting looking, which is definitely a favorable point towards zombie virus. The only boss fights that I flat out didn't like were the zombie soldier and the moth zombie. The zombie soldier is simply waiting in a car-sized corridor for G.I. Joe over here to get down from the wall and reload his gun, and the moth zombie has a similarly frustrating wait until the flying guy lands type beat. The levels themselves are actually pretty diverse, with only 2 of them being very city-like and the other 3 taking on their own separate biomes. Design-wise, they do the job alright, providing a new area to explore. However, I feel like the forest level and the ice level were kind of at odds with the movement. One of the 4 things that the tutorial character in the hospital tells you about is drifting with the brakes. Zombie virus obviously wants you to be making a car that goes really fast and drifts around corners, but then they make a map like the forest, which is blotted with random terrain haphazardly and tightly strewn about, and the ice map, where if you drift at all, you completely lose control of your car. The best way to traverse these areas is to simply slow down and methodically take each step, but this feels antithetical to everything else in the game. The timers, the upgrades, the combos. It just sucks because when 2 out of the 5 areas in the game feel incoherent and frustrating, that's a large portion of the game. There is a small amount of zombie diversity in the game, which is interesting visually, but ludologically it gives the player nothing. There are new types of zombies in each area, but it doesn't actually change the way you're playing the game. Like, does it really make a difference if I'm running over a big zombie or a dog zombie? The only enemy type that's even slightly different in this sense is the cop zombie, who will shoot at you, but this will only happen if you're very close to it and staying still, which you shouldn't be. Now that you're aware of all of the underlying systems that come together and make a zombie virus, I'd like to take a step back and talk about the core gameplay loop again. If you've been doing the math, you'd know that there are 5 areas in the game, each requiring you to rescue at least 31 survivors and move on to the next one. That's 155 survivors, and you still have to get another 31 after you unlock every area in order to get the ending, so 186. If you have a 3 capacity car, you'll need to make 11 trips back and forth per area. Once you have your 4 capacity car halfway through the game, it's more like 9. In the first area, you have a 2 capacity car for your first 12 or so trips. Doing a rough estimate, that's like 70 trips, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. There are only so many places that survivors spawn, and once you've gone to an area once or twice, it's very easy to just know exactly where to go and make a routine out of it. Repetitive is a word that I would definitely use to describe zombie virus. Granted, most people who play this game will not play it like I did. I played it in very large chunks for the review. I distinctly remember dreading moving on to a new area, as I knew that I still had hours of doing the same thing over and over again ahead of me. I will definitely concede that this game would be better enjoyed in much smaller chunks. This was exacerbated by the fact that the world just feels so empty. For a city that had 99% of its population zombify, there sure are only small clumps of 10 or so zombies at every intersection. There's barely anything to look at. The small view radius does an alright job of giving it a horror-y aesthetic, but it also means that I'm rarely looking at things until I'm already speeding past them in my ambulance. The music that plays while you're driving is so unengaging and ambient that I just turned it off, and I had to put on like an outrun playlist or something just to feel something. While I find it hard to knock the game for its lack of voice acting or minimal selection of music because of its budget, it does feel tonally weird to have the hospital lady interrupt your muted horror music and go, "Excellent," and resume the track anytime you hit a combo. If there's anything this game could benefit from, it would be a compelling story. While the survivors will change their dialogue as you progress through the game, most of the time it's not really anything to call home about. Although I do think it's really funny that the mechanic, he doesn't tell you, "Don't get yourself killed." He says, "Don't kill yourself" when you're done talking to him. And it's like, nobody looked at that and was like, "That's weird. It's like, don't kill yourself. The scant story bits that you do get involve chasing around this giant zombie worm who keeps showing up, eventually finding out that it secretes a fluid that somehow seeped into the tap water and contaminated everyone, turning them all into zombies. This small amount of information is spread out over almost 8 hours of gameplay, and when all is said and done, you kill the big bad monster and your character is just like, maybe we deserved it for growing too fast as a city. And I'm just like, what? How did you come to that conclusion? You just fought for your life and saved a whole bunch of people, and now you're just talking about, oh, I don't think I'm very good at being a doctor, I'm gonna stop doing it. But oh wait, there's a stinger. Look, little worm guy survived. Oh no. I think it's interesting in a way that these games were marketed under the name Essential Games in PAL regions. When looking at that name, you almost immediately think, oh yeah, these are essential, must-play video games. But after playing this game, I now look at this label through a new lens. It's essential in that it is in essence a game, the base of a game. The ideas aren't bad, they just need to be iterated upon, expanded upon, in order to reach an acceptable level of potential. Some games within the Simple 2000 series were able to reach that level within their essence, but I don't think that Zombie Virus did. There's definitely something here, but even if this game were still $20 to this day, I don't think I would recommend something that I consider essentially a game. Thank you for watching.